So we have reached the halfway point on this sermon series on the 12 steps. And I'm not going to waste our time today going in depth through all 5 of the other things we talked about. I'm just going to summarize them briefly to set the tone for where we have been so we can look at where we're going. Basically, what we talked about so far is that we know that we're messed up. We know that we have issues and things that are tearing us down and beating us up. We know we have to look for help outside of ourselves to deal with those things. That help that comes from outside of our mess is God, who comes inside the mess with us and begins the work of healing, of helping us become better. And this work begins when we're honest with ourselves and with God, and when we include other people about what we're dealing with. So that's where we've been. And that puts us to where we are today with the 6th step. We are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I know this sounds like some of the other steps, but it's not. In the other steps, we are realizing that we need help. We are identifying what we need help with. We're making it known that we need help. But this step is where we're actually willing to accept help. This step is where we actually put the action to the words. I'll share with you one of the knocks on the Christian faith, the Christian church in general, is that we talk too much. We have lots of words, lots of thoughts, lots of ideas, but we seem to never have action that go with those words. That's what this step is today, putting the action to the words. It's more than just saying that we need to change. It's more than just saying that we need help. It is instead accepting what has to be done to have that happen. Action is always harder than words, though. In this particular step, we're talking about changing the core identity of who we are. We're talking about changing who we've become through the things that have happened to us or that we've done to ourselves. And that's not only hard, it's scary. This particular step is not only about who we are right now, but who we'll become. Now, as always, we're going to look at Scripture this morning for advice or direction, things to help us with these steps. And this morning, we are going to look at Scripture from Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 through 12, to tell us what the defects of character are that we're talking about, why they're important to be removed, and what's going to take their place. So in Colossians, we read this. Put to death, therefore, whatever is in you that is earthly, fornication, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming on those who are disobedient. These are the ways you also once followed when you were living that life, but now you must get rid of all such things: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive language from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have stripped off the old self with its practices, and have clothed yourself with the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge according to the image of its creator. In that renewal there is no longer Greek or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free, but Christ is all and in all. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. So the first thing that we have going on in this scripture are 5 vices. And they're always funky words when we read them in scripture. Sometimes we don't really know what we're getting at. We're talking about the words fornication, impurity, passion, evil desire, greed. It would take forever and a day to outline each one of those things and what it really encompasses and what it really means. So instead, let's just summarize them all into the one word they come from, the place that they come from. Those 5 things are all about lust. Now, I know most of the time we relate the word lust to sexual things, which, by the way, is on the list. But lust relates to more than just sexual things and sexual activity. Lust is an all-encompassing need to feel something, to have something, to own something, to do something. Lust overcomes us and shuts out all reason, blinds us from seeing anyone else except for ourselves. And lust actually takes things one step further. Not only do we just see ourselves, but it causes us to see other people around us as resources to getting whatever the thing is that we want, or obstacles to get over to get to the thing that we want. Now, right now, you might be thinking to yourself, what's a good example of this? I'll share you one from my life. It's always best for me to talk about me instead of you. I'm a gamer. Anybody gamers? Anybody play video games? Okay, I got you right here. I know Judy does back in the back. Josh is chuckling. He does once in a while. So I'm a gamer. I need to let you know I play and collect video games and consoles. I have either owned or currently own pretty much every console ever made, even the weird, obscure ones. As a matter of fact, if you were to go into my house right now, I have 9 different consoles. If you were to look at my Batman backpack, I have 3 different handhelds. When I tell you I'm a gamer, I'm serious. I collect and I play. For those of you that are not gamers, you may not know that probably the most significant gaming event that ever took place was on October 26th in the year 2000, the year the PS2 came out in North America. That changed gaming forever. The games that you could get on the PS2 were games that you couldn't play anywhere else. There were games that didn't seem like they were even possible till the PS2 came out to be able to play in your own house, to have friends come over and hang out. And as I read the reviews, as I watched people play the games, I had to have one. But here's the problem. When they launched, they immediately sold out. You couldn't find them anywhere until one day in the little town I lived in, I walked into this weird little mom and pop convenience store. And guess what was on the shelf? One PS2. I don't even know why they had one. This is a store that didn't sell any electronics. Why have one PS2? But it was there. And guess what else? They did layaway. I was like, sweet. I can put this on layaway, I can make payments, and I can get it when I can afford it. And so I did that. I had them put it on layaway. But in the coming weeks, I watched or read every review. I played my friends' PS2s that had one. I actually went to local game stores just to play the demo units, to get my hands on it. And during this time, my desire for a PS2 grew and grew until eventually it was all I could think about. I had to have one. How could I get it as soon as possible? Now, at the time, I was living with 2 roommates, and we split the bills evenly between us. And one day, I realized I had paid enough off on my PS2 that if I took my part of the bill money to the convenience store, I could bring my PS2 home. And I thought about that, and briefly I thought about my roommates and how this might mess things up for them, but I quickly pushed that out of my mind because I was getting my PS2. My roommates no longer mattered. They were just obstacles to getting the PS2 that I'd figure out later how to deal with. Everything would be all right. And so I went and I bought my PS2. I didn't pay my part of the bills. Things got turned off at the house. We lost some of the basic services. My roommates were not happy with me. They did not care that I had gotten the PS2. And they kicked me out. They kicked me out because I lusted after that PS2. All sane and rational thought, all loyalty to my roommates, my integrity, my word, and paying part of the bills, my relationship with them. I sacrificed all of it because I lusted after the PS2. I needed it. I had to have it. That's how lust works. It shuts down every vestige of humanity except for need. Everything else is gone. Only need exists. And then lust feeds that need until it's overwhelming. Until you've got to do something about it. Lust breaks us as people. Lust stops us from becoming who God made us to be. Lust moves us into places, doing things we never thought we would do, becoming people we never thought we'd become. Lust continues a pattern of harmful behavior towards ourselves and others. That's what those first 5 things are about. Things that break us, move us away from God, move us away from who we're meant to be. If we're going to be healthy, we have to get rid of those unhealthy lusts in life. And then as you read this scripture, there's another list of 5 vices. So we don't just have the 5 that relate to lust. Then we have these: anger, wrath, malice, slander, abusive language. This new list of 5 things that we have to deal with, that we have to work on, are not necessarily focused on us. They're focused on other people. All 5 of these things are antisocial behaviors and feelings that cause brokenness between ourselves and others. All 5 of these things will alienate others from us and push us more off to by ourselves. Now, as I like to give examples, I don't really feel like I need to right now, because many of these things we have been experiencing for months, before, during, and now after the last election. You could look at that list and see, yeah, these have been going on. If we're going to be honest with ourselves, we have been the recipients of anger and wrath and malice and slander and abusive language. I believe that 100%. But I also believe, if we're honest, we've been the givers of anger and malice and wrath and slander and abusive language. It's been a contentious time for the last few months, and I think we've been on both sides in giving and receiving. I'm not saying that we have done or experienced all of these things in the last few months, but I'd be willing to bet some of them we've experienced recently, perhaps, and the ones that I would say we were most apt to have experienced: anger, slander, and abusive language. These are the defects of character that the 6th step talks about. Remember, last week we were meant to work on these steps, not alone, but with others. And this 6th step, right in the middle, is pivotal to that. If we don't get rid of the first 5, if we don't deal with the lust issues that put us focused on ourselves, then we embrace these next 5 that break our relationships with each other and force us to be by ourselves. We need community. We need others to be healthy. And that's what these 5 are doing. They're taking that away. In this scripture, the list of 10 vices that are all about lust and relationship-breaking behavior are talked about like clothes. I don't know if you caught that. This scripture says these things must get ripped off, that we must be stripped naked. Now keep that image in your mind, that we have to be stripped naked. I want to be honest, there is embarrassment in nakedness, is there not? I mean, when I get out of the shower, I turn out the lights so I don't have to see me. There is embarrassment that comes from nakedness. The writer of Colossians is telling us, if we're dealing with these 10 vices, there will be embarrassment. We will have to suffer that. There will be shame when we actually look at what we've done and how we've done others and things that have happened. When we realize and own the things we've done to ourselves or to others by living into these vices, embarrassment and shame is where we'll be at. I remember that after I got over the anger for my roommates kicking me out and not understanding how awesome it was we had a PS2, even though we had no power to play it with. When I got over that anger, I remember the embarrassment. I remember the shame that I had for putting a gaming console over close friends. I remember the embarrassment and shame that I felt for having made them make this decision to kick me out. Anybody who has talked to me knows that one of my prime key points, one of the things that are most important to me, is integrity. About keeping the word. About being who you say you are. And I felt embarrassment and shame over sacrificing that integrity for a gaming console. But thankfully, we don't stay naked. We don't stay in that place of embarrassment or shame. We are told that we will be clothing ourselves in a new self, renewed in the image of our Creator. From that renewal, instead of vices, we have 5 virtues that this scripture tells us about, that these new clothes are made from. These 5 virtues are compassion, kindness, meekness, humility, patience. That's a much better list of 5. That's a list that overcomes lust and keeps it in right relationship with each other. If we look at compassion and kindness, they will always make sure that we don't get wrapped up in self and what we want. Compassion and kindness keeps lust at bay because it makes sure we're always taking into account other people and what they have going on instead of just being about us. Those first 5 vices that are wrapped up in lust are actually selfish. They cause us to only look at us, only see our point of view, our perspective, our understanding, what we think and how we think. Compassion and kindness force us to look at each other. How do you think? What's important to you? What do you see? What's the values that you have? It can't just be about me. And then we have meekness, humility, and patience. Those will help keep us in right relationship with each other. They'll make sure that we don't get into a place where we see enemies or combatants or adversaries and obstacles. That will keep us in the place where we will always see people, living, breathing people, people created in the image of God, people of sacred value and worth, people that breathe the breath of God. Those 3 will make sure that we never lose sight of that. It does not mean that we will always agree. It does not mean that we will not fight with those people, that we will not have issues and problems that we have to deal with. It just means that we will not ever stop seeing them as people. That's important. As God moves in and removes from us these defects of character, as we strip away those 10 vices, as we go through the embarrassment and shame of what we've done and how we've done it, God then helps us find these 5 virtues. God helps us grow these 5 virtues. I want to share with you that when I was an atheist and became a Christian, I did not automatically have these 5 virtues. When I felt God's presence on that hill in Charlotte, North Carolina at Spencer United Methodist Church, watching those kids play really bad football, I did not all of a sudden feel at one time compassion, kindness, meekness, humility, and patience. I would argue if I was lucky, I felt humility, and that was it. I've had to grow into the other things. And so as we're talking about this scripture, realize that as we strip away the things that have become a part of our life, these vices that shouldn't be there, these vices that tear us down, these vices that divide us from each other, these vices that stop us from becoming healthy and who God made us to be. As we're stripping those things away, we're not automatically going to have all of these come into place and we're good. There's not some light switch moment where I've got it all and I'm awesome now. We grow into them. But because God comes into our life, because we have said to God, I can't do it myself, I need you to come in and do this for me, there's the potential to grow into them. God helps us find these virtues, and they are absolutely things that we have to have. We have to have them if we're going to continue to grow as people. If we're going to grow into who God has made us to be, both individually and as a community. We absolutely will have to have them if we're going to continue working through these steps of recovery, of healing, of wholeness. I want to invite you as Hannah comes up to lead us in our last song. Fantastic song, Be Thou My Vision. Sing these words like you mean them. Sometimes it's hard for us to see what we need to do and what's going on and where we need to go. That's the words of this song. The words of this song are saying, God, be my vision. I can't see it, but you can. See it for me. We follow. I invite all who are able to stand and to sing.